Hi everyone, today's ERQ is evaluate two research methods used in the study of brain and behavior in the biological approach. So that means first you need to evaluate. This command term evaluate means you need to write the strengths and the weaknesses of what? Let's go back to the question on research methods. So that means you need to write two studies from biological approach and whatever research methods have been used in these studies, you need to evaluate and write the strengths and weaknesses of these research methods that are used in the study. I hope you understood. Let's start writing this ERQ. Here is the ready-made answer for you. See how to write and what to write in this ERQ. Let's start.
Okay, let's start with the introduction first. So the introduction goes like this. The biological approach in psychology tries to explain behavior through biology in order to see how different factors like neurotransmitters, hormones, or genetics have an effect on behavior. Psychologists use different research methods to come to conclusions. Two research methods that are used in the biological approach are case studies and experiments. So this was the introduction where I have included mentioned that it's a biological approach and how is it linked to the behavior, and then I have also written that research methods are needed to study the biological approach and which are two main research methods. Here I'm going to talk about case study and experiment. So my next paragraph is going to be about what are case studies and what are the features of case study. This is the specific knowledge that you need to give. So the second paragraph goes like this. Case studies are a type of method that concentrates on studying a specific individual with a certain trait. That is done because by investigating the personal lives of the individuals, one may try to understand and help the average person who also has the same illness. In the following case, method triangulation is used to test and explain behavior through different approaches. A holistic approach is used as one takes the certain patient's lifestyle, health, and environment into consideration. Case studies are an effective way of showing how different factors in a person's life are connected to each other. Through method triangulation, different psychometric testing such as IQ testing is conducted, interviews as well as direct observations of the patient are taken, and cognitive testing such as memory recall tests. Now I have given what are case studies. My next paragraph is going to be a supporting study from brain and behavior biological approach, and I will take one supporting study that has research method case study used in it. So this is the study that I'm going to write in my ERQ. A famous study conducted by Milner was the case of HM, where he was studying the role of the hippocampus in memory formation. HM suffered a serious head injury after being hit with a bicycle at a very young age, which led to epileptic attacks and seizures. With his and his family's approval, his medial temporal lobe and therefore hippocampus were removed from both sides of his brain. It was important to find out the effects of the surgery had on HM. Now I have written this, then I also need to give more explanation on the same. His working memory, such as having a conversation and procedural memory, was still intact. However, the results showed that HM could not obtain any new episodic knowledge, that is, memory of events, nor could he obtain semantic knowledge, which is general knowledge of the world around him. This showed that the part of the brain that was most damaged was the hippocampus region of the brain, which is responsible for transferring STM to LTM. Now, as per the question, I have to evaluate the research method. That is, I know that the case study has been used in the study. Now, I'm going to write the strengths and weaknesses of case study used in this supporting study. So here is what I write in my next paragraph, the strengths and the weaknesses. A strength of this study is that it was longitudinal, meaning that HM was observed over a very long period of time, and as the case study uses triangulation, we can rely on the data as it was taken through many different approaches. A limitation is that it is very hard to replicate. However, other patients that had similar conditions to HM were studied and confirmed the findings. However, in general, case studies study individuals who are not representative of the general population. Now I also include little more on this. Case studies have high ecological validity as no variables are manipulated. HM lived in his natural environment and wasn't studied in a lab. Case studies also collect both qualitative and quantitative data. This makes for rich data. Now this was the evaluation, that is strengths and weaknesses of case studies. Now I'm going to use another method in biological approach, the research method, and my next specific knowledge goes like this. Another method used in the biological approach is an experiment, which is one of the methods that is very commonly used to study behavior. Experiments are conducted to determine whether there is a cause and effect relationship between the independent and dependent variables. Experiments are based on a hypothesis that predicts the relationship between the dependent and independent variables, and a control group that is used as a comparison to the condition that with the manipulated independent variable. Now I have given what is experiments and I have given the features of it. Now I am going to write a supporting study that had experiment used. Now I am going to give the study. An experiment conducted by Newcomer et al. 1999 studied the effects of stress on verbal declarative memory. Newcomer used the stress hormone cortisol to determine whether taking high levels of the pill would interfere with verbal declarative memory. As experiments are also standardized, the procedure can be replicated so that the reliability of the findings can be tested. Now I have given the study. Now I need to evaluate, that is, write the strengths and the limitations. So my next paragraph is, this experiment was a double-blind study, meaning that neither the participants nor the researcher knew which of the three following conditions would be assigned to certain participants. Double-blind studies are a good way of preventing researcher bias. It also means that the participant doesn't know whether they would get a placebo pill or not. The participants were also matched for age and gender to have an even distribution of participants among the three conditions. Participants in first condition, high level of cortisol, took a tablet of 160 mg of cortisol each day for 4 consecutive days. Participants in the second condition, low level of cortisol, took a tablet of 40 mg of cortisol for the same number of days. Condition 3 participants were the placebo group who received a pill with no cortisol. After taking the pill, the participants were asked to listen to a prose passage and then asked to recall it to measure their verbal declarative memory. Findings were that low levels of cortisol improved the verbal declarative performance of the participants. However, high dosage of cortisol impaired the performance. The placebo pill had the most positive effect on verbal declarative memory. Now I'm going to write the evaluation of the same. A limitation of the study may be that the prose passage might not have been a natural way of measuring verbal declarative memory. This might depend on the culture, because some cultures memorize poems and stories from a young age, so that might have an effect on the results of the study. However, since the study was done using employees or students of a university in the US, it is highly possible that many of the participants were raised in the US as well, where it's not that common to memorize poems. A strength of this experiment is that Newcomer was able to clearly show the cause and effect relationship between the two variables. A limitation, however, was the participants were not studied at all times, as they came into the lab only for the actual memory test. An ethical consideration in this study is that the participants, although they signed a consent form, were given pills that may have had some short-term damage to their brains.
So here we are done with the ERQ. I hope you understood and how to write, what to write in this answer. If you have any queries, please feel free to write in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe, because here you get all IB psychology material.